Time now on France 24 for a campaign beat. And we say hello to Charles Pellegrin.
Hi, François.
Around every water cooler in France right now. The issue for those who don't like either of the candidates in the runoff is whether or not to abstain, to vote, not to vote, etc. Far-left high school students in Paris making their voice heard this Thursday.
That's absolutely right. In Paris and in other cities around France, like Rennes, between hundreds and thousands of high schoolers took to the street to make their voice heard in this election. They can't vote, but they believe this election concerns their future. There were two strands to these protests. First, a movement against the Front National party with slogans calling Marine Le Pen's party xenophobic and racist. And there was also another strand that called for people to boycott the election as a whole, calling Le Pen a fascist on one hand and Macron a dangerous neoliberal on the other.
In
the short term, Macron is perhaps less bad, because with Le Pen we're expecting the worst. But in the long term, Macron will do more damage.
We saw what the fascists were like in the 1930s, and yes, Marine Le Pen is a fascist. We don't want fascists or bankers.
Neither Le Pen nor Macron, they were chanting.
Yeah, that's the refrain that we're hearing a lot of these days, yeah.
And we're seeing that on that score that, and we heard it, one of Marine Le Pen's top surrogates was in our studios on Monday, and he seemed to be giving a wide berth to those Mélenchon supporters, saying, yes, I understand if you want to abstain.
Yes, and they're putting like sneaky little buzzwords here and there in interviews. Marine Le Pen is trying to convince people who voted for Jean-Luc Mélenchon in the first round to vote for her. In the second, she's using phrases like, quote, France won't be subjugated in interviews, a direct reference to the France Insoumise movement, that's Jean-Luc Mélenchon's movement, which can be translated as a subjugated France or unsubjugated France or unsubmissive France. So she's dropping these hints. And then we're also seeing things like this flyer you're seeing on screen being circulated. It shows what are apparently points in common in the programs of Marine Le Pen and Jean-Luc Mélenchon, things like leaving EU treaties, leaving NATO, or calling for a retirement age of 60 years old. And as with many political tracks, there are mistakes. One example, Marine Le Pen doesn't actually call to leave NATO. She just wants France to have a diminished role within it. And their stance on Europe is also not as similar as the flyer suggests. They're coming at it from different places. Le Pen is calling for a referendum on EU membership after a renegotiation within the EU, while Mélenchon wants to stay in Europe, that's his starting position, but renegotiate EU treaties.
All right, so the far left divided over whether or not to abstain, vote for Le Pen, vote for Macron. And we're also seeing a splintering of the main center-right bloc.
Yeah, this election is really breaking all the rules. After the Les Républicains candidate François Fillon came in third in the first round, many party leaders in Républicains called on voters to rally behind Macron in order to block the Front National. But not all of them, and this is causing a fracture within their camp. More with James Creedon.
Nicolas Sarkozy announced on Wednesday that he intends to vote for Emmanuel Macron. On his Facebook page, the former president said he regrets the result of the election, but that the choice of the French people must be accepted. He said his decision to vote for Macron is a personal one and not an official endorsement. In publishing the message, Sarkozy is attempting to win over influence in Les Républicains. The party is divided over whether or not to openly endorse Emmanuel Macron.
If we continue to throw ourselves at Emmanuel Macron, like we're currently doing, I think there's a chance our party could cease to exist politically.
The official party position is somewhat vague. A compromise text calls for voters to block the National Front without explicitly endorsing Emmanuel Macron. A clear division is now emerging. Former Prime Minister Alain Juppé is unambiguous about the need to clearly support Emmanuel Macron.
When you want to beat someone, there aren't 1,000 choices. You vote for the other candidate. That's why I said openly I will vote for Macron. And I called on all sensible voters to do the same.
To endorse or not to endorse, two very different positions within a divided party.
Okay, so splintering within the center-right. We saw the Socialists splinter before the first round, what with some who opted for the party nominee who comes from the hard left of the party, and others who'd, well, jumped ship and gone to Emmanuel Macron.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that were between rounds 1 and 2, the Socialists, am I wrong to say, seem more united?
At least what's left of them. That's what we have to say. After their dismal score in the first round, just over 6% of the vote, the ruling Socialist Party is going to have to do some soul-searching in the coming months. But the immediate concern is over the election's second round and ensuring that the National Front doesn't end up in power. Luc Schrago, Karim Yayaoui, and Clara Castelli went to find out more.
The moment the dream died, few thought Socialist Party candidate Benoît Hamon would make it to the second round, but no one expected him to gain just 6% of the vote. It left the party scrambling to prevent a slide further to the right.
President Marine Le Pen? Never. We have to block the far right and vote for Republican values.
2 days later, party activists were out in force, distributing millions of leaflets printed urging support for centrist independent Emmanuel Macron. At their side, party leader Jean-Christophe Cambadelis.
I don't think France will ever accept Marine Le Pen, but we really have to be careful about abstention. The fact is, the fewer people who turn out, the more Le Pen will get. You never know what could happen. A mishap isn't out of the question, and that's why we as socialists have to campaign.
For activists, Hamon represented true socialist values. But without him in the running, their hope is for the nation to rally and block the National Front from getting through.
It's quite hard and painful, but we're taking the defeat in our stride, and we're trying to support the candidate that's better than the other one.
A lot of people are disappointed and won't turn up to vote. But that just means I have to work harder to get people, especially the young, out to vote.
For many people, however, the decision's already been made.
I see a real gap between Macron and Le Pen, so I don't think just reading something like this will change anyone's mind from one round to the next. Not mine, at least, but you never know.
Such optimism may be the only thing the Socialists have left, with the party threatening to tear itself apart as its MPs flock either further left or right in upcoming parliamentary elections. Their overwhelming hope is that a political group 50 years old won't end up on the scrap heap of history.
All right, two big issues, I think, defining this second round. One is globalization, we saw with the whole incident at Whirlpool. The other is identity and borders. And on the question, more specifically, of immigration, Josh Vardy's been looking into how the two candidates fare.
It has always been one of the National Front's key talking points, but far-right French presidential candidate Marine Le Pen has only dedicated a handful of her 144 campaign promises to immigration. She says the answer is simple: the end of globalization.
The free circulation of people, the free circulation of capital, the free circulation of merchandise, and yes, the free circulation of delinquents, the free circulation of terrorists.
If elected, Le Pen's fight against globalization would start by taking France out of the Schengen zone. She also proposes reducing legal migration numbers as well as ending the automatic right to family reunification and citizenship by birth. Le Pen's opponent, Emmanuel Macron, has attacked the return to hard national borders as illusory efficiency. He says immigration issues can be eased with greater collaboration between European countries.
Economically, socially, and in principle, immigration is a good thing, whatever the country.
Macron makes integration the most important priority of his proposals on immigration. Before the first round of the French presidential elections, Amnesty International published a report in France on the proposals of each candidate on their attitude towards refugees. They found that Emmanuel Macron's proposals aimed to speed up and simplify the asylum-seeking process, but was worryingly vague. Amnesty says that a Marine Le Pen presidency would put an end to the idea of seeking asylum altogether.
And if you're just joining us here on France 24, it's campaign beat all the way till the May 7th second round of the French presidential election with Charles Pellegrin. Let's talk about what was going on today on the campaign trail. Marine Le Pen.
She went out fishing for votes, literally on a trawler on the Mediterranean coast. 4 hours, very early this morning. Again, going for that sort of working class vote, showing that she's okay working in tough conditions, and she knows what it's like for for working class French people. This was also obviously a signal for Brussels, and she took advantage of the situation to criticize EU regulations with regards to fishing. She was accompanied with Gilbert Collard. Another picture you saw him smoking a pipe and having a sailor's hat on. He's like he prepared for it all his life. Meanwhile, Emmanuel Macron was in a suburb of Paris, Sarcelles, and he was there. It's a very sort of working class suburb as well, and multicultural. And to a crowd of journalists there, he criticized Le Pen's program as being a, quote, treason to France, and he called her party xenophobic. Well, Marine Le Pen is going to be in Nice this evening, and she'll be holding a rally there. Our reporter, Catherine Nicholson, will be following that. Let's join her on the line now. Kat, this is a part of France in which Marine Le Pen scores really well. Is it safe to say that she's on home ground?
Well, if I just throw a couple of numbers at you, this concert hall where Marine Le Pen is holding the rally this evening can hold just over 9,000 people. More than 4 times that many voted for her in Nice in the first round of the presidential election. She came in second with just under 26% of the vote, less than 1 percentage point behind François Fillon, her main rival here. The right and the far right do very well here in Nice, in Provence, in the Côte d'Azur region generally, and they have done so for several years. And that is the kind of territory where Marine Le Pen is looking to pick up some more votes going into the second round. We know that Marine Le Pen is scheduled to be the one and only speaker here tonight. A lot of her fans and supporters got here more than 2 hours early. I can tell you there's a roaring trade going on of Marine Le Pen souvenirs in the lobby as well. I ought to mention though as well that there was quite a lot of security, also private security from the venue, where they told us that there is more security than for a regular concert or that kind of event, and also a lot of police, some of them wearing riot gear. We do know that there have been angry outbursts among demonstrators outside other Marine Le Pen rallies in the past, and also demonstrations since the first round results came in.
Oh, Kat, there was new revelations today showing that the Front National may have cost the EU Parliament as much as 5 million euros over a fake jobs scandal. Is this a concern for her voters?
Well, I was talking to voters around Nice all afternoon, asking them what the big issues are for them, and nobody mentioned any kind of scandals as a reason why they might doubt Marine Le Pen or not vote for her. We did speak to some people who said that they weren't going to vote for her just based on ideological reasons, but among those who are going to be backing Marine Le Pen in the second round, 2 issues kept coming up time and again: security and the economy. Now, here in this region, unemployment is slightly higher than the national average, and also of course on security, it's such a pressing issue on so many minds in this area. Who can forget July the 14th last year, that truck attack that was claimed by the Islamic State group that killed dozens of people on the Nice seafront as they celebrated France's national holiday. I think we can definitely expect Marine Le Pen to talk about security and to talk about the economy when she appears on that stage behind me in just over an hour and a half's time.
Thank you very much, Catherine Nicholson, reporting there from Nice. So security and the economy at the top of the agenda there for the Front National.
And no warm-up acts before Marine Le Pen speaks. We'll leave you with the latest poll, the daily poll from IFOP, and it's holding steady after it was thought that perhaps Emmanuel Macron had suffered PR-wise with that standoff at Whirlpool that we were talking about yesterday. A 21-point lead over Marine Le Pen, 60.5% in the second round. That is a poll, of course, from IFOP. And we'll leave it there. Charles Pellegrin, many thanks.